First of all, I am so honored to be doing this. I never lecture of things I don't want to do. I'm very blessed that I love CSP, not like it. And I love having opportunities to think about things that I wouldn't necessarily do on my own. The other thing I just want to say, a book is coming out on my photography. For those of you who work with photography with me, there's a book on 150 to 180 of my photographs coming out in October, and I hope I'll send you all the information. So this is a very exciting lecture that I prepared for. I just went over it 2 hours ago just to see if I can squeeze everything into the hour, which is going to be very hard. But and I want to thank Sharon who works with me. We spent hours going through videos to try and give you a really overall view of how diverse Rome is for their galleries / museums. Some of them are called galleries, some are called museums. The most exciting one by far to me is the Vatican, because you're going to see here how the church uses art to give narratives for Christianity. Now, you all know about the Dura Europa Synagogue. You know what? I think at the end, we're going to send out a little extra information. I want them we'll send them some information on the Dura Europa Synagogue. That's a very important thing. Think about the holiest of holies, the Kodesh Kodashim. You know, how only a Kohen Gadol went in once a year to see everything, and how much time was put into this beautiful space that only one person once a year would look at. I find those two things interesting. Here at the Vatican, the popes realized most people couldn't read at the time, and therefore they made sure that they told the stories of the church in a very profound way. I feel like I don't have the time, but I told Ari if I did, I don't think I'd go for all your trips, but I'd love to go with you to Rome, because I've been there many times and it never stops to amaze me how brilliant the artwork is. Now, I want to tell you a few things that are important to me before we start. Number one, when you go to Vatican City, you realize these museums, it's not like the Met. I love the Met, by the way, but a museum is a work in progress. And how the museum shifts through different popes. Look at the windows, look at the way they're frescoes, look at the fact that they're tapestries, look at the fact that they're sculptures put into areas that are like courtyards. Think about the fact that it says that many people are going to say this, that they're workshops by famous artists. And sometimes you give the credit to Michelangelo or somebody else, but you're going to hear in these videos that I picked out for you that a lot of it was done by their assistants. And some only the design was done by the famous artist, but then their workers did that. Look at how everything, I wrote all these little notes to myself. I went to the walkthrough this morning at 9, and there are things that I want you to think about before you see everything. Look how everything is divided into different types of works, meaning there are areas that are tapestry, there are areas that are more sculptural, there are areas that are more painting, there are areas that are paintings done on the walls themselves. I think it's very important to understand why popes believed in certain things and how they changed the minds of what they thought was important in a Vatican museum. So we're going to start now. I beg you to ask me questions because I love it. And let's start. Now, remember, I picked out, I know I put in too much, but I didn't know what to leave out. And this is me working very hard to get rid of things. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 places to go to. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. Unless it's very pertinent, I want to go through the questions at the end. So we're starting at the Vatican Museums because I think that's by far the most important thing to do in Rome. And then we're going to end at the Museum Nacional of Contemporary, which is very different. So we're going to just look at this little thing. We're going to go through it. Museums are now open. I want you to all see this because I'm giving this to you all as a present. Whether you go to Rome or not, you'll just see things. We're going to go through this quickly. You'll see some of the masterpieces. And they're doing this to get you excited and to buy tickets. But I wanted you to see, I mean, I am speechless. I'm talking, but I am speechless at how many great works you'll see very quickly. By the way, look at the way the marble is carved. It honestly feels like it's skin. Look at the fact that they do music in the museums, which, you know, the Guggenheim started doing, the Met started doing. Vatican City was always brilliant at bringing all different things in. Vatican City, going to these museums. Now that's the whole thing again. Now we're going to start with the videos. Go to the first video and watch it, how crowded it is. Go ahead.
What you're about to see are some of the highlights of the Vatican Museums, but please keep in mind that there are 13 museums here, comprising 2 Vatican palaces, and it would take several days if not weeks to really see everything. In fact, the route along the museums is 4.4 miles or 7 kilometers long. What started as just a small collection of sculptures has over the centuries transformed into a museum complex featuring one of the finest collections of art on the planet. The Vatican Museums were founded under the patronage of 2 18th century popes, Clement XIV and Pius VI, who were among the first to open collections of art to the general public for viewing. The 262-foot-long Gallery of the Candelabra contains many ancient Roman copies of Greek statues from the 2nd and 3rd century BC, but the ceiling, painted from 1883 to 1887, is an attraction too. The gallery's name comes from the massive marble candelabra that were placed in front of the pillars in 1761 when this was an open loggia, along with the marble columns that divide the exhibition area into 6 sections. Arranged under Pope Pius VI between 1785 and 1788, the gallery was renovated during the time of Pope Leo XIII at the end of the 19th century, and this is the decoration we see today.
I don't know what just happened. That didn't happen to me before.
It's an ad. It's an ad.
Well, I didn't have an ad this part.
The Gallery of Tapestries features 27 tapestries belonging to 2 different periods. On one side are tapestries woven in Rome by the Barberini workshop and featuring important moments in the life of the Barberini Pope Urban VIII. On the other side are tapestries woven in the 16th century by the Flemish workshop of Peter van Elst, the best in Europe during the Renaissance period, based on cartoons by Raphael and his pupils and depicting episodes from the life of Christ. Each tapestry took at least 9 years to finish and were woven in gold thread, silk, and wool. Many of them originally hung in the Sistine Chapel. The longest gallery is a gallery of maps. In the 16th century, when popes seldom ventured out of Rome, Gregory XIII commissioned giant maps depicting all of Italy so he can explore his territory from the Alps to the Adriatic Sea. The resulting gallery housed 40 frescoes stretching from floor to ceiling across the length of a football field, the largest collection of geographical paintings ever created.
Look at the way the sculptures are on the sides.
The walls of this gallery are decorated with large paintings of maps created by Antonio Danti between 1580 and 1583. His brother Ignazio Danti, an architect and cosmographer, provided the necessary information. The maps show Italian cities, islands in the Mediterranean Sea, and papal territories. Ceiling frescoes depict events that took place in these locations. The beautifully decorated Room of the Immaculate Conception was created following the proclamation of the dogma of the Immaculate Conception by Pius IX, which took place on December 8, 1854, and which formalized the belief that the Virgin Mary was conceived without sin. The pontiff decided to celebrate the event with a cycle of frescoes. The task was assigned to Francesco Podesti. The artist, along with his team of workers, worked on the room from 1856 to 1865. The room underwent an extensive restoration in 2007. In 1867, it was decided to commission a bookcase to be positioned in the center of the room to hold the translations of the proclamation by Pius IX. The work is from a Parisian design workshop which produced it between 1874 and 1878. The bookcase was financed largely through donations by a team of artists and craftsmen: ivory workers, sculptors, masters of metal chasing, painters, mosaic artists, ceramic workers, and goldsmiths, each of whom were engaged in the production of a specific type of item. The 110 volumes containing the manuscript text are now held in the Vatican Apostolic Library, and the bookcase now contains copies. The pictorial decoration proceeds from the ceiling with allegorical scenes alluding to the virtues of the Virgin. This large fresco is devoted to the proclamation of dogma in St. Peter's Basilica. This is the coronation of the image of Mary in a choir chapel in the Vatican, an event following the proclamation. Podesti, who was present, included a self-portrait here. In this fresco, theologians are discussing the history of the Immaculate Conception.
Broadway.com has been the most
I'm sorry about these ads.
trusted name in theater tickets.
This morning. But I
With
want you to
Lightning
understand a
Fast
few
checkout.
things.
Legend.
That the
The Raphael
trying
rooms
to
were
keep
commissioned
what
by
they
Pope
believe
Julius
through
II,
art.
who preferred to distance himself from Alexander VI and thus refused to reside in the apartments created for his predecessor. He planned on inviting a variety of renowned master painters to decorate his own private apartments, but after seeing the work of the 25-year-old Renaissance painter and architect Raphael, he decided instead to entrust the work to him. From 1508 on, Raphael worked on and off on the decoration of the apartments, often distracted by his other work, including the construction of St. Peter's Basilica. Raphael died in 1520, before the frescoes of the papal apartments were complete, but his assistants finished the work following his designs. The frescoes are considered masterpieces of Renaissance art. The Room of the Fire was named after one of the frescoes. The room was decorated from 1514 to 1517, mostly by Raphael's assistants during the pontificate of Pope Leo X. He chose the lives of his namesakes Leo III and Leo IV as the theme for the room. The most important fresco is the Fire in the Borgo, which was painted after a sketch created by Raphael. It shows Leo IV extinguishing a fire by making the sign of a cross.
Look at that arrow.
The Battle of the Ostia, which in 849 AD saw the troops of Pope Leo IV opposed to the Arabs, celebrates the miraculous victory of the papal armies and also refers to the crusade against the infidels encouraged by Pope Leo X. The Coronation of Charlemagne is a painting by the workshop of Raphael. Though it is believed that Raphael did make the designs for the composition, the fresco was probably painted by John Francesco Penny. The painting shows how Charlemagne was crowned Holy Roman Emperor by Pope Leo III on Christmas evening, 800 AD. The oath of Leo III took place on December 23, 800 AD, when Pope Leo III took an oath of purgation or cleansing concerning charges brought against him by the nephews of his predecessor, Pope Hadrian I, who had accused him of misconduct. The assembled bishops declared that they could not judge the Pope, after which Leo took the oath of his own free will. The Room of Heliodorus was partly carried out by Raphael between 1512 and 1514. The theme of the room is a divine intervention in protecting the church and saints. The Mass at Bolsena depicts a miracle that is said to have taken place in 1263 at the Church of Santa Cristina in Bolsena. A Bohemian priest who doubted a church doctrine was celebrating Mass at Bolsena when the bread of the Eucharist began to bleed. It's a painting by Raphael and was painted between 1512 and 1514. The meeting of Leo the Great and Attila depicts the important meeting between the Pope and the Hun conqueror and includes the legendary images of St. Peter and St. Paul in the sky bearing swords. Raphael and his assistant Giulio Romano painted it in 1514. The Room of the Segnatura is named after a special committee that gathered here. Raphael started with this room in 1508, and it's the only room that was completely painted by the master himself. The subject is the harmony between the values of the antiquity or ancient past and Christianity. The first composition Raphael executed between 1509 and 1510 was the Disputation of the Holy Sacrament, the traditional name for what is really an adoration of the sacrament. In the painting, Raphael created an image of the church, which is presented as spanning both heaven and earth. Raphael completed the second composition between 1509 and 1511. It represents the Parnassus, the dwelling place of the god Apollo and the Muses, and the home of poetry according to classical myth. In the fresco, Apollo and the Muses are surrounded by poets from antiquity and Raphael's own time. The two scenes on the fourth wall executed by the workshop, and the lunette above it containing the cardinal virtues, were painted in 1511. The cardinal virtues allegorically presents the virtues of fortitude, prudence, and temperance, alongside charity, faith, and hope. The chapel of Urban VIII came into being in 1631 when architects, upon request by Pope Urban VIII Barberini, adapted a small room for services, surmounting it with a vault with lunettes and decorating it with ornate gilded stucco. This small space became the private chapel of the old apartment. The frescoes depict various stories relating to Christ. The original appearance of the walls is unknown. They are now decorated with stamped leather from the Vatican Apostolic Palace and mounted in the chapel probably during the second half of the 19th century. The antique leather wall coverings were made of goat, sheep, or calf skins and with silver and tin leaf. The unique gilded appearance was obtained by applying transparent yellow paints across the entire surface, which made the most of the shininess of the metal leaf, thus simulating the effect of gold. The Borgia apartments are a series of rooms that were converted into private apartments for Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo de Borgia. The Pope was a patron of the arts, and he called upon Pinturicchio to decorate the rooms with magnificent frescoes. Between 1492 and 1495, Pinturicchio and his pupils painted 6 of the Borgia rooms. The frescoes depict religious and medieval themes. Most of the rooms are currently used to display a selection of the collection of modern religious art.
Okay, now I want to talk to you for 2 minutes. This is the longest video you're seeing. I had to show it to you. I kept trying to think of how I would get rid of anything, but then I knew I couldn't. Now we're going to see something for 1 minute and 50 seconds. But the most important thing that I want to tell you is I hope you see how the popes realized that they could teach their belief system visually. You also notice that this is the most crowded of all the museums in Rome. I mean, it's not a museum, it's 13, but more people go there than anywhere else. And as a rule, I would tell you, I do not believe in guides who are not artists. And that's one of the reasons I guide people through museums. In this case, it's fascinating to see the history. It's also fascinating to see how much that we think are done by Raphael or other great artists were done by their assistants. Very often they only did the design. And then when a pope decided he didn't like what the former pope did, they just changed it. I'm sure you understood, and I wanted you to hear that in that video, that things would change 200 years later. And sometimes I love that stamped leather. And you know, when you stamp leather, it doesn't always look as rich. And that's why they put a wash of yellow over it to make the colors richer. Now watch this for a minute. This is again fascinating. I picked these very carefully. Sharon's in the back. She really helped make this happen. So I'm shouting out to her. Now, there are going to be many films that you can see. But these are just, watch this. Farmer found this. Look at their rooms of just basically sculpture. One of my favorite pieces of art in the world. I've done paintings based on this finger. Look at how great the color looks here, much better than the 10-minute video. One of my favorite images in the world. So if you want to see that movie, you should see it. I wanted to give you the a short 1 second of it. Now let's go to the next. I hope I'm not putting in too much information, but I hope you like it half as much as I do. Now look at this. This is fascinating. This is about one sculpture. Look at the marble.
About 20,000 people pass by it each day, at times with only a passing glance. The Belvedere torso awaits them there, his back toward them, in the Hall of the Muses, in the Pio Clementino Museum, along the way that leads the visitors to the magnificent Sistine Chapel.
Ci arrivano di spalle e poi dopodiché il torso Belvedere rappresenta nel flusso dei musei un po' quello che rappresenta una roccia in un torrente, cioè si arriva velocissimamente sulla schiena del torso e poi si crea un'isola di pace di fronte al torso, molto piccola, e dopodiché il deflusso avviene con la corrente.
The work of art of Greek origin from the 1st century before Christ bears the signature of the Athenian Apollonius, son of Nestor. It is difficult to identify the subject. Careful archaeological studies and reconstructing the pose in its static tension by observing live models have come up with the identification of the Greek hero Ajax Telamonius, who contemplates suicide.
Una tensione statica, cioè in pratica si percepisce la tensione muscolare ai massimi livelli, al tempo stesso si intuisce che lui è statico e non si muoverà nell'arco di pochi istanti. Lui sta pensando al suo destino, sta pensando alla morte imminente che vuol darsi, per vergogna, per umiliazione, per rabbia, però ancora non sta facendo nulla. Lui ha nella mano sinistra il fodero della spada che tiene nella mano destra e con il pugno si tiene sul mento.
The courtyard where the torso originally stood amidst the 16th century trees was placed there by Pope Julius II, next to such masterpieces as the Laocoon or the Apollo Belvedere. It became the school of the world for Renaissance artists and those who came after.
Sappiamo che questo famoso gruppo del Laocoonte, che è in qualche modo una scultura compagna del torso di cui stiamo parlando, fa il suo ingresso ufficiale nelle collezioni di Giulio II in Vaticano. Collezioni che in qualche modo sono l'atto di nascita dei futuri musei vaticani. Francesi, fiamminghi, tedeschi, addirittura scandinavi vengono alla volta di Roma e molto presto nel Cinquecento incominciano a fare una sorta di accademia con cui si mettono davanti alle opere, fra cui il torso, e dal vivo le copiano. Fanno dei disegni molto accurati che diventeranno a loro volta matrici di stampe.
The anatomical beauty and the incompleteness that characterizes this sculpted fragment were highly esteemed by Michelangelo Buonarroti. Not by chance has he been defined as the disciple of the torso. He would spend 3 hours a day there.
La tensione che è generata da questo pensiero è stata intuita dagli artisti fin da Michelangelo, che è definito discepolo del torso, cioè arrivare con vari passaggi a artisti famosi anche più recenti come Rodin col suo pensatore.
Michelangelo, sculptor of the Non Finito, is hypnotized by Ajax's static tension he reproduced so faithfully, evidenced by the ignudi of the Sistine Chapel ceiling.
Atletici, muscolosi, tutti che fanno un gran sfoggio di un'anatomia in sforzo, in atto di apparentemente fare qualcosa che poi in realtà non c'è questo qualcosa. Ed è precisamente in questi sforzi in cui trapela la memoria certa del torso, che Michelangelo ha visto, ha studiato, ha sicuramente a lungo interrogato dal punto di vista del modello scultoreo. Se ne additano alcuni in particolare che hanno proprio una ripresa letterale mai della posa nella sua integralità, ma sempre con questa muscolatura esageratamente gonfia che, se vogliamo, anche nel torso non è del tutto spiegabile.
The static tension immortalized by the sculptor Apollonius is mirrored in the prisoners or slaves, in the Moses found in the Church of St. Peter in chains, in the saints and angels and devils, and in the imposing image of Christ in the universal judgment. These are concrete proofs that Buonarroti was a student of the Torso Belvedere's school in the Vatican.
All right, I'm watching my time very carefully, but I'm trying to show you, the most important thing I'm trying to show you is that artists had mentors too. Now, you couldn't take 50 photographs and look at the photographs. Michelangelo would spend 3 hours at a time drawing from that. So I want you to understand, I'm talking about two separate things. One is how museums get built. Two, how artists learn from each other. Everyone is always looking at other people. I don't mind that there's no talking on here, but I want you to see, you can close that where it says attention. I want you to see a very different, this is the Borghese, but look at that marble. Marble was a big thing at the time. And look at certain museums that have sculpture and painting equally involved, or sculpture, painting, and tapestry. And also look at, sometimes they treat the walls with marble or fabric, and sometimes it's just paint. All these things I think are very important. So I'm showing you this just so you'll see an overall view. Now we're going to walk through the museum. I know that I spent a lot of time in the beginning, but I'm telling you that's the most important place to go. If you only have a week, I'd spend 3 days in Vatican, at the Vatican Museum. So this is the Galleria Borghese. So now we're going to see this. Now we can go and hear some talking. Let's look at it.
When he was elected Pope in 1605, Paul V decided to transform some land that he owned just outside of the city of Rome into a villa, a suburban villa located outside of the city proper, and to use that structure for delectation, a place to get away from the stresses of urban living. And he asked his nephew, Cardinal Scipione Borghese, to assemble the world's greatest art collection. And Scipione did by no means disappoint. In fact, the collection of the Borghese is still housed today in that building that you see behind me, the Borghese Gallery, which is my absolute favorite museum in the entire city of Rome. It contains some of Gian Lorenzo Bernini's most celebrated early works, like his Apollo and Daphne, his Aeneas, his Pluto and Persephone, as well as 6 paintings by the great Caravaggio, including the David with the head of Goliath. And then upstairs you can enjoy Raphael's great Transportation of the Body, Correggio's great painting of Danae, and several paintings by the great Venetian artist Titian as well. But there's more to this building than just the art that's contained inside. There are the secret gardens to the left and right, the aviaries that you see as well, where they had a collection of rare birds, silkworm farms, dovecotes. This place was what the Borghese like to call the theater of the universe, where they could come to enjoy this great collection of esoteric and beautiful things and show off the world what a great family they were. But the term villa does not refer only to the building, but to the entire park that surrounds it, where today the Romans come to jog, walk their dogs, and simply enjoy a bit of greenery in the very heart of their city. The Villa Borghese, the great lung of the city of Rome.
So I wanted you to understand that different institutions, so for them, the gardens were equally important. Now, what's very interesting, people always say to me, do you think it's an accident that the Met is right near Central Park? I don't. I always have felt that when you go in there, when you walk out, you have a continual feeling. If you go right into Central Park, you feel that atmosphere of art there. And I think this is amazing that they kept all the property around there and their sculptures throughout, but it's used by everyone now. Now take a look at the next one. I know I'm doing this quickly, but I really want you to see everything. Watch this now. There are hundreds of videos that we went through to find the right ones to give you the feeling. Now you feel like you're walking into it. Look at every inch of space is used. This is a video just letting you walk through. Always when you go to museums, look up, look around. Understand why the sculptures are put near the paintings. What are you learning from the view by seeing what everything's around you? So the reason I did one video with talking and one without, I want you to feel like you're walking around this space. And I'm begging everyone that goes on the tour, don't just look at the painting that you're looking at or the sculpture you're looking at. Look all the way around. I really enjoyed picking videos. Most people look at a piece of art for 3 seconds. I want you to try and look at it as the piece itself and its context and everything around it. Remember, these were done for very different reasons. Now we're getting to the next museum. You get to keep all these after the lecture is over, and I want you to be able to look at it in different times. So now we're going to see this one.
The enduring influence exerted by the Greek masters on Roman art takes shape in the evocative setting of Villa Cafaratelli and will remain there until April 12. On display is a selection of over 150 masterpieces, sculptures, reliefs, ceramics and bronzes, all original Greek works, some of which are being exhibited for the first time. And others have returned to Rome after centuries of dispersal and more after centuries of dispersion.
There are many artworks displayed in this room, all of them coming from Roman temple buildings. The Romans had developed the practice of recovering sculptures originally dedicated to Greek temples, subsequently reusing them within the context of Roman temples.
A journey to retrace the encounter between two civilizations that were protagonists in a dialogue that shaped the taste and aesthetics of the West.
In a specific story that shows how this fervent relationship between Greek art and the birth of a Roman identity changed over time.
The exhibition is enriched with multimedia content that guides visitors through architectural reconstructions, ceremonial contexts, and decorative apparatuses. This integrated approach that combines archaeology and digital technologies offers, on the one hand, an engaging visitor experience, and on the other, the possibility of contextualizing the works in their original space, bringing the public closer to the most recent interpretations, modern techniques for studying and restoring ancient artifacts.
So now you see they're very different types of museums and what the goals of each of those museums are. So the first two museums you saw, nothing changes. So if you go there, I mean, it does change. I take that back because they keep on adding different lights and different ways they paint it. But some museums in Rome have exhibitions like this one every 6 months, something different. But what's fascinating about this museum, there's a lot of work here before Christianity takes over, and you're seeing the body as something that's beautiful, that's not a religious narrative. And I want you to understand that's what's so exciting about being in Rome. By the way, I love Florence and Venice also, but they're very different experiences. But this is really about how cultures are shaped by the art that you see. And remember that the museum directors help decide what you're going to see and how you're going to see it. Okay, let's go to the next. Look at when the marble is very soft and when it's very rough. These are pieces taken from other places and put into the museum. So some of them are you always saw outdoors on sides of buildings. Okay, so now we're getting to modern and contemporary. I hope I'm not going too quickly, but I want to put in so much information, it's hard for me. But this is the National Gallery of Modern and Contemporary Art in Rome. Very different museum. Let's go look at this. You can go over this slower later.
Rome's National Gallery of Modern and Contemporary Art, or La Galleria Nazionale, was founded in 1883. The present building was built between 1911 and 1915. In 55 rooms, the museum displays 1,100 paintings and sculptures from 19th, 20th, and 21st century artists. Here are the top 15 works, my top 15 works in the museum.
I agree with most of them. I don't agree with all of them.
Gustav Klimt's 1905 masterpiece represents 3 stages of a woman's life: childhood, motherhood, and old age. Van Gogh's 1889 piece, The Gardener, is one of his most famous works.
And look at the surface.
Number 3, American Jackson Pollock completed this
Not a
work
great
in
Pollock,
1947.
just for the record.
Italian Jew Amedeo Modigliani
I love that Italian
died
Jew.
in poverty, but his reputation soared after his death. Number 5, the Paul Cézanne painting, The Cabin of Jourdan, was painted in 1906. French painter Claude Monet was born in 1840 and died in 1926. This painting is from 1898. This pastel painting highlights Degas' focus on the human form in
Technically
intimate
not
moments.
a painting, it's a pastel. He said pastel painting, but he's wrong.
Born in 1877, Dutch painter Kees van Dongen completed this beautiful painting in 1912. Italian Sandro Chia is noted for his brilliant colors and sometimes mysterious symbolism. This impressive work is from Italian futurist Gerardo Dottori.
They picked a lot of the top 15 that were Italian.
Giuseppe Maria Alberto Giorgio de Chirico was an Italian artist and writer born in Greece. Kandinsky was a Russian painter and generally credited as one of the pioneers of abstraction in Western art. Italian Francesco Paolo Michetti was born in 1851. This famous painting was on display at Rome's International Exhibition of Art in 1883. Mr. Michel Murano, an Italian painter, was best known for his battle scenes. Completed in 1923, this planetarium was done by Emilio Iskro, an Italian.
So the reason I showed you this, wait, look at these two bonus pieces. These are great.
Multiple sculptures placed on tiles made of broken glass. What a concept. Not exactly sure what to make of this, but I really like it. I wonder where Alfaro Piri came up with this idea. Sculptor Liliana Moro was born in 1961. She describes her dogs not as mythology, but rather just a pack of dogs.
So the reason I wanted you to see this is most museums.
I really
Oh, that's
like
one
this
more.
museum for two reasons. One, the art, of course, is great. And two, the museum is peaceful. A peaceful environment, no long lines. The staff is very friendly. Here you'll find none of that Rome museum madness. Thanks, Galleria Nazionale, for a wonderful New Year's Day visit.
So let me explain to you why I put this in. I don't want you to only go to look at the most famous things. I love this museum. I don't think everything is even in there, but if I were in Rome, I'd spend an hour or two there. I think you should be spending most of your time in the Vatican Museums, the Borghese, other things also. But I just want you to understand, try very hard to see all the museums that I gave you on this list. I went through a lot of other things to try and pick out what are the most important, but by seeing how much time we spend on each one, you'll see what else is important. Now we have 3 more left, and we only have 15 minutes, but I'm going to be racing. This is very important. Journey through the Italian and international masterpieces setting an extraordinary Baroque palace. You all know what Baroque means. Take a look at this. I think context is very, very important. So let's look.
Isn't just a museum. It's a palace built to project power, ambition, and status. Rising in the heart of Rome, this 17th century residence was designed not to impress quietly, but to overwhelm.
Look at the
Built
ceiling.
for the Barberini family, one of the most influential dynasties in Baroque Rome, this palace was meant to be seen, remembered, and talked about. Even before you notice the art, the architecture makes its point. Everything here is oversized. The staircases, the ceilings, the rooms themselves. This space doesn't invite you in gently, it asserts itself. This is architecture as authority.
Look how beautiful that marble is.
The collection reflects the spirit of Baroque Rome, dramatic, emotional, and unapologetically bold. Paintings weren't chosen just to decorate walls, they were chosen to signal taste, influence, and control. Caravaggio, Raphael, Titian, names that define entire periods of art history, displayed here not as isolated masterpieces, but as part of a living palace.
Look how the paintings and the walls are painted
At the center
white.
of the palace,
Very
the ceiling
important.
becomes the main event. Pietro da Cortana's vast fresco isn't meant to be glanced at. It's meant to command your attention. Palazzo Barberini is best experienced by moving through it, room by room,
That's a
floor by
gorgeous
floor,
piece.
letting the scale do the talking. This is Baroque Rome on a national stage. Palazzo Barberini isn't about quiet discovery, it's about scale, drama, and the moment Rome chose to impress the world. For more Rome art-focused walks, follow the travel plan. And as always, step by step, let's explore together.
So I just want to go back to this. I wanted you to see this museum because very different than Vatican City, that every inch is covered. These walls are white. That's the first of the museums that I showed you today that are setting up much more like a contemporary museum. Now, wait till we get to this one. Very different again. I'm trying to give you all the different feelings. By the way, you remember that we saw in Vatican City the chandelier room? They took out the chandeliers, but this is the way that it would have looked. And look at the painting, sculpture, chandelier, chairs. Everything is set up to make you feel like you're in a gold room. Let's go. Very different than we just saw. Go ahead. Let's go to this one.
Feels. This is a 17th century private palace still owned by the princely Doria Pamphil's family, who are actually descendants of Pope Innocent X. The gallery is arranged along a series of long mirrored corridors filled with paintings, tapestries, chandeliers, and antique furniture.
See what I mean? All mixed together, very different than the other
museums. Its collection includes masterpieces by Caravaggio, Titian, Velázquez, and Raphael, still hung in their original gilded frames. The most famous painting is Diego Velázquez's portrait of Pope Innocent X, considered one of the greatest portraits ever painted. So powerful that even the Pope himself reportedly said, "È troppo vero," it's too true. The gallery is home to Caravaggio's Rest on the Flight into Egypt.
Look at the paintings of the wall.
The Palace Chapel and Ballroom still hosts events and concerts, preserving the building's role as a living residence and cultural venue. Just outside the entrance, along Via Lata, stands Il Falchino, the porter, one of Rome's 6 talking statues.
Fascinating.
Il Falchino depicts a man carrying a barrel, likely a 16th century water vendor, honoring the city's aqueduct workers who delivered water door to door. Over time, locals began posting anonymous criticisms and satirical poems on the statue's base. Together, the palace and statue tell two sides of Rome, the refined grandeur of aristocratic life inside and the gritty voice of the people carved into the street outside.
Now, watch what happens in the next video. This is fascinating, and most of you wouldn't know this unless you saw this. You should try and get to see that secret apartment. Look at this.
Another noble palazzo hiding in plain sight right in Rome's center on Via del Corso is the Palazzo Doria Pamphili. Some of the members of the family still live here, but the main rooms on the ground floor are open as a museum, and it's called Galleria Doria Pamphili. But the part I want to tell you to visit in this video, which is about visiting noble palaces where you can see how they live, is the secret apartment of the Palazzo Doria Pamphili. I think most visitors miss this because it's not part of the same ticket as the regular museum ticket. It's also not the same entrance as the museum entrance. This short, self-guided visit gives you a rare glimpse into the private world of one of Rome's great noble families. The rooms are richly decorated but more intimate, with velvet walls, ornate furnishings, and personal portraits. I love the cribs and the doll collection in the children's room. There's even a private bathroom featuring the Fountain of Diana. This is the only historic palazzo in Rome where you can see what a real aristocratic bathroom looked like. The apartment is still used occasionally by members of the Doria Pamphili family, who live on the upper floors. Occasionally, the space hosts small, intimate concerts. In the description below, I have links where you can book this if you like. A visit to this secret apartment is actually really easy. It's open almost every day of the week, and you can purchase your ticket right at the apartment itself, which is on the ground floor of the Palazzo Doria Pamphili. It's only €6. It's completely separate from the museum ticket, so you can decide to combine it with a museum visit or not. As a bonus, the Palazzo Doria Pamphili has 2 wonderful places to eat. At their indoor cafe, you can enjoy breakfast, brunch, lunch, or aperitivo, and inside their beautiful cloister, you can enjoy lunch, aperitivo, or dinner.
I hope you're enjoying how diverse this trip I'm giving you.
The first 4 palazzos I shared with you were part of Rome's Renaissance and Baroque period. If the other palazzos show off Rome's classical elegance, Villa Torlonia is something else entirely. Built in the 19th century for the Torlonia family, bankers who bought their way into nobility, it's an eclectic estate full of neoclassical buildings and whimsical architecture. In the 20th century, it became the official residence of Benito Mussolini, who lived here on and off between 1925 and 1943. You can even visit the underground bunker he had built during World War II. The most unusual building on the grounds is the Casina delle Civette, which means the House of the Owls. It's an Art Nouveau fantasy full of stained glass, carved wood, and symbolic animals.
This is the least interesting of the pieces that I'm showing you.
Another building on the property is the Casa del Principe, or the Prince's House. This space is used to hold temporary exhibits, but the main building to me is the most interesting thing to visit. It has truly retained its character as a noble palazzo, complete with an enormous ballroom. Inside, you'll see a collection of art from ancient Rome all the way through to more modern artists such as Canova. Each room is more interesting, beautiful, and unusual than the next. Most of the villa is a public park, but you can purchase a ticket to visit the buildings there. There's even a cafe on the grounds where you can eat inside or outside. The food isn't amazing, but it is a lovely place to enjoy some refreshment. If you do decide to visit Villa Torlonia, I suggest taking a short walk to go see the beautiful Copede district. I included it in my video about 4 special Roman neighborhoods to explore. You can check.
Now we have the last show, which is, you all know what that's Catalana. That's the famous banana on the wall. And this is the Museum of Contemporary Art, which I really love, designed by a very important contemporary architect. Let's look at that. So different than everything we saw. I want a few minutes at the end for questions, but another great museum that's totally different than anything we saw today.
We're just north of the center of Rome, looking at Zaha Hadid's relatively new building, the MAXXI Museum, devoted to 21st century art. As we approach the museum, we walk by military barracks, and we just begin to spot the concrete facade of the museum resting gently on the older buildings, poking its nose around the older buildings, until we walk into a large piazza where the full width of the building is apparent.
In some ways, it seems to have almost landed on that older structure.
The fact that it feels like it's landed suggests weightlessness, despite the fact that it is an almost unbroken slab of concrete. And that's in part because of the shadow created by the overhang of that concrete, reminiscent of the international style and the work of people like Bussier or Mies van der Rohe.
And in the facade of the building, rows of metallic columns that might remind us of Bernini's Piazza at St. Peter's.
There's also the historical precedent of the use of concrete, a material that the ancient Romans perfected and used to shape space, and she is very much the inheritor of that tradition.
Although we don't see those round arches like a Roman aqueduct or like the Pantheon, it's almost like those round arches have tilted and become horizontal and move the visitor to the museum through ribbons of space.
Zaha Hadid has won virtually every major international architecture prize.
She was born in Iraq, but is a British architect. She holds faculty positions at numerous universities all over the world.
And right after school, she had worked for Rem Koolhaas at his Office for Metropolitan Architecture. This was one of the most inventive and theoretically important architectural firms in the 1970s and 1980s.
Hadid is clearly drawing inspiration from modernism, from constructivism, from the work of the great Russian painters of the early 20th century like Malevich, embodying a kind of early 20th century utopianism about the modern city.
And in the warm grays of the concrete, in the silvery grays of the metal flooring, and in the blacks and whites. And it reminds me of the interest in translucency, transparency, and opaqueness that you see especially in the work of artists like Moholy-Nagy in the early part of the 20th century. as well as unabashed interest in the power of pure geometry.
So looking toward Islamic art as well as modernist architecture.
In fact, she mentions the importance of having seen the minaret at Samarra, this massive figure that creates very clean, stark, geometric lines, and that creates a kind of ribbon for people to walk up.
And there is that sense of ribbons of space, of that path around the minaret coming undone and branching out when we walk through the spaces of the museum. There is something very exciting about moving through this building and not knowing what one will come across next. And no matter which galleries we go into, we're drawn back to these fabulous stairways that are black but lit underneath with white light.
We're walking on metal grids, and this entire interior space seems to be a contrast between these wonderful curvilinear ribbons and strict rectilinear geometries.
And we see those rectilinear geometries in the walls with the blocks of concrete, in the stairs, and in the concrete beams that almost read as blades along the ceiling.
Our eye shoots along those beams and are slowed only by the fins of the louvers.
But these stairways move like bands in and around those rectilinear shapes and feel very playful.
The staircases not only bend, but also double back, creating sharp angles. And they do feel playful, almost as if you could have a huge metal ball that runs along as if they were a track. But there's also a hint of the sinister, and at least one critic has likened it to the Prince of Piranesi in the way that they seem to move in every direction with a kind of endless multiplication.
Of different spaces weaving together and going back out again.
Sometimes rushing from one space to another, and sometimes slowing down.
The architect said, and I'm quoting here, "My first idea was about a delta where the main streams become the galleries and minor ones become bridges which connect to them." And of course a delta is a river that forks and flows into the sea.
What does it mean to design a museum in the 21st century? If you think about the history of museums, they're generally palaces that have been repurposed. For example, the Louvre in Paris, which was the royal residence of the King of France, or here in Rome, the Vatican Museums, the Papal Palace.
Or you could think about many of the palazzi in Rome that were once family palaces that are now museums.
The Barberini Palace, for example.
Or we could think about the early modernist architecture of the Museum of Modern Art. Museum architecture says a lot about how we see ourselves and how we see our cultural heritage and how we move into the future. Do we look to the past? Do we look forward?
And that's an especially salient issue here in Rome, a city with an overwhelming history.
Okay, we have 1 minute left. I hope you all enjoyed this. I loved doing it. Does anyone have any questions? Can we have a few minutes for questions?
Sure, we can go
beforehand,
just a little.
did you guys enjoy it, I hope? Did I give too much information, or did I drive you insane? Is anyone annoyed that I can't resist? It was so much information I wanted. Let me tell you a few things. Before you go on a trip, go to Google and look at, there are hundreds of videos to see on different things. I want to thank Sharon, who's behind me. She's gone. We went through so many things to find the right ones. Now go ahead. What are the questions?
Sure, we're going to go just a couple minutes over. We're going to start with how does the Pope's relationship to Vatican art differ today than it did 200 years ago, 500 years ago?
Excellent question. Each Pope, I love that. Whoever asked that, thank you for the question. I could have paid for that. That was like a plant. Each Pope usually reacted to what the Pope before or the Pope before the one before acted. This Pope is very into human condition. So I think he's going to look, we don't know yet what he's going to do, but each one has a philosophy. And usually you don't know about that philosophy for a year or two. So I'm curious what will happen. Certain popes did not like us as a people, us Jew guys, So they wanted to show bad things about us. Some of them were really interested in Mary. Some were really interested in Christ. Some were interested in his disciples. Some were interested in converting people. You know what I mean? So that's a great question. Each one had different philosophies. Some did not believe in spending so much money. Some wanted to spend a fortune. And you see how much gold there is in there. So it really was what they wanted the church to be during those years. Thank you for that question.
So I found when, at least when I was at the Vatican, and others have mentioned it, it was, as you said, the most crowded it could possibly have been, which leads it to be, ironically, one of the least spiritual experiences one could
I
have.
agree. I agree.
Is there, and how could someone have a meaningful experience touring the Vatican art museums?
I almost showed you a video where the person told you what to do, but I didn't like the rest of the video. But one of the videos said, get there early in the morning, take your break when it's, oh, you're already shaking your head because you know that, Kathleen. You get there early in the morning, you have maybe an hour and a half of good time, go to lunch, come back later in the day, skip the afternoon part. It's so crowded you can't even move. It's unpleasant.
Yes.
But and oh, one more thing. Sorry, I should have also pick out the areas that are least popular for the most crowded times. Like when you go to the Sistine Chapel, get there so early. It is so crowded you can't even move your arms. And it's really not fun. But if you get there early in the morning, I promise you it blows. And I want to say one thing. This between God and man, I've done a series of paintings about that. I love that little thing. If you can bring your binoculars, get to see that. That is, I think, the most spiritual thing. The other thing that I always have found fascinating, why is God like a macho guy? I don't believe God is a man or a woman. And why is Adam so built? I always found that interesting. They're both like hunks. I think it looks too much like a Marvel movie, because I don't believe God is that person, and I don't believe Adam was that built. I mean, Adam came out and he did not go to the gym every hour. You know what I mean? So I find that, but those fingers to me are so beautiful.
So we had a question about plaster and bronze casts of the statues that we see in the museums in Rome. How did that work for museums in the US and in London, other places that have casts of the originals?
All right. Excellent question. Thank that person too. So marble, you can't remake a marble, but what you can do is you can make a plaster of it and use something called marble dust and use a composite. So there are ways to do copies of things. You should also know they talked about one of my favorite sculptors in the world is Rodin. And Rodin always did multiples. Like if you go to the Israel Museum, you're going to see a beautiful Rodin when you come in. So many artists did that. And the other thing is you can, and by the way, one of the most interesting things that you noticed, you remember they said they had facsimiles of the library things. Many things you see in museums are facsimiles. I think that's important to understand. You can make a copy of something and to the naked eye, you won't notice it. And then now something called drum scans. You do a drum scan. Anyone, if you don't know, I'm telling you what it is. You take the image and you blow it up to a ridiculously high resolution. And then it can even look like it's the real thing. So that happens often.
Okay. How does
one other thing. I'm sorry. Forgot. I meant to tell you this from the beginning. Sometimes you'll see broken things, and in the olden days, they used to fill in the broken parts to make it look real. Now they don't believe in that anymore. So that's changed over the years. Sorry, go ahead.
How does the church reconcile the prohibition of graven images with the depictions that we've seen in paintings, sculptures, pretty much every piece almost that we saw today?
So they believe that we're the Old Testament and we're too strict. They don't have that problem. They believe this is a way to explain religion. So it's not one of their 10 commandments. I mean, it is, but it's not. They believe education, and it's worked, by the way. I don't know if you realize this, but I use the name Christ. Some people don't like using it, but whatever you want to call Jesus, or in different states, he looks very different. He looks more like the people of there. Like if you look at the Flemish or the Italian or the Greek, they're always different. So it's an interpretation of rather than what God actually looks like. And since we don't know what God looks like, I don't think that's a problem. So I don't think they think that way. They're trying to teach. It's like an illustrated Bible. And by the way, I'm telling you, it works. I can't tell you, almost all my Christian students at university know the whole Bible story through pictures.
And the last question, are there works by any Jewish artists in the Vatican?
Yes, I told you, we saw that. Chagall, Modigliani, no, there are quite a few. And I know contemporary Jewish artists. Somebody asked me if I would give something. I wouldn't. But if somebody buys it, I'd be honored. No, they have a lot of Jewish artists too. Yes.
Great.
They have everybody. They're not like so strict about that.
Are there any in particular that you would?
Chagall. The Chagall is beautiful. Chagall. It showed it in the video. Didn't you see that? I thought I picked that video. Thank you. I did.
There was a one Chagall that was like briefly shown in like a list of. Yes. So that's the one. That is the one. If
that's not that's not the only one. There are other ones too, but that one is a beautiful one. They're gorgeous Modiglianis in some of the museums there, who now is hotter than hell. And he did not sell during his lifetime. I feel terrible about that. I think he's brilliant. And now there's going to be a big retrospective of his. And by the way, do me a favor. I want to make sure I'm going to send an email today. I want to start the gallery tours again, but I might want to do something just on the Modigliani show because it's brilliant.
All right.
So write Ari that we want to do the galleries again soon.
All right. So a little teaser to end today's lecture, a little teaser about a potential Modigliani program coming up. So with that, I will say thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Hope to see you all in Rome. And thank you, Toby.
I loved it. If you have any questions, you can get to me. Thank you for participating. Please come back for Florence and Venice because they're going to be very different. I'm even taking you to a lace factory, and I'm also taking you to see Murano glass. I mean, the other two cities are so different than Rome. I won't have to talk so quickly.